Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the second annual Heart Awards. It is so exciting to see the room filled with beautiful folks here to celebrate the achievement and the accomplishments of the Housing and Education Alliance. I have to share just very quickly, as we were going over the scripts, as the MC always must do before the event, Laura Fage, the event planner, had to make a correction in the script. And it's the first time that there's a correction that I'm super duper excited about. The script last year said that 65% of families had to undergo some type of counseling, financial counseling, because they were on the verge of losing their homes. 65%. And Laura said, oh, we've got to scratch that out. That was last year's number. I do news, so I expect the number to go up, not down. And I said, what do I write? 80? She says 35. So what an accomplishment! The theme for tonight, the Emerald City, the Wizard of Oz. It's such a great theme. Munchkins, good and bad witches, the lions, tigers, and bears, kind of like life itself, a little. Follow me here. The good, the bad, the ugly. When Dorothy flew over to Munchkin Land, and she began her journey, and she was going to the Emerald City because that's where the help was, she kept getting one piece of advice, and that was follow the yellow brick road. Well, like Dorothy, in real life, many individuals find themselves lost, out of sorts, and trying desperately to get back home. And having what I call a Toto moment, when she looks at the little dog and she says, we are not in Kansas anymore. And so, no matter the reason that gets us to that point, the bottom line for each of us is the same, that we aren't where we once were, and we need to get back home. Well, back in 2008, through no fault of their own, the Housing and Education Alliance found themselves in that position. Their executive director, Sylvia Alvarez, called the staff to a meeting and announced that HEA would have to shut their doors because of lack of funding. The staff took one good look at Sylvia and said, no. They refused. And in a decision that many would call pure insanity, the staff voluntarily went from being employees to volunteers. And it was a decision that had its consequences, and yet they took the challenge on. The fact is that many of the staff found themselves either losing their own homes or facing several phases of foreclosure. That's not a tough decision. And so many folks would have walked away, looked for another job, and they didn't, because they believe so firmly with every cell in their body in the mission of the Housing and Education Alliance. And thanks to that selfless act of sacrifice, passion, and kindness, I'm happy to tell you that 5,000 families received the free foreclosure assistance that they desperately needed because of that decision that those employees made. And I want to thank Sylvia for being the kind of leader that inspires that passion. That year, that extraordinary measure was celebrated publicly for the first time at the Be More Awards, when the Housing and Education Alliance was named the Nonprofit of the Year during a wonderful community event that's really known as the Academy Awards for Nonprofits. And when they called the name, I remember announcing the name and the winner of the Nonprofit of the Year. And when I said Housing and Education Alliance, Sylvia could not believe her ears. I think she was shaking, and so I had to prop her up behind the podium. And it was such a moment, because they had come through so much to get there. And as bad as that situation was, the silver lining in all of this is that the staff, at that moment, that group of people, felt the pain of their clients and gained a very deep perspective of what their clients were going through in a way that they had never, ever imagined. And as a result, the service that they were able to provide these 5,000 families, the counseling, the friendship, the concern, was more than they had ever expected to do, more than they had ever imagined.